Hello and welcome to episode 4 of My Thoughts. So this week we had multiple things to address before we can really move on to learning more about it. Okay, President Biden got inaugurated. Okay, great. We had a peaceful transfer of power with 25,000 National Guard troops on hand to ensure security. Mainstream media keeps wanting to claim that this was unprecedented in U.S. history. For the U.S., that is true. It's actually quite reminiscent of the Soviet Union and Communist China. In fact, the only thing missing was the Soviet national anthem. To make matters worse, more annoying, I should say, this was said to be done in response to the riot on the Capitol where 130 people broke into the Capitol building. 25,000 soldiers against 130, 300 even. Let's round way out of proportion and say, well, as many as 1,000 people might have. Okay, 25,000 National Guard soldiers to protect the inauguration. Can anybody say Belfast? If you don't know what that means, it refers to the troubles with Northern Ireland, where the IRA, fighting for liberty and equality, their perspective. In this case, the fear was that the federal government might be held accountable to American citizens who felt that tyranny was being imposed. Well, no such thing happened, so I guess the American people don't think Joe Biden is a tyrannical dictator, even the people voting against it. Okay, so we got that part of overkill. Then there was an issue where 5,000 of those soldiers were told to go sleep in a car park, a parking structure. Yeah, the arguments that, well, there was no Wi-Fi. It's the Army. If anyone noticed the video of these soldiers, the majority of them had, or many of them, had combat patches. That would be a shoulder sleeve insignia for former wartime service. It goes right below the American flag on their uniform. For those who don't know, that way you can identify it. The majority of those combat patches that I saw were for the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault out of Fort Campbell, which means that sleeping in a parking structure is not the worst thing that these people have seen. In fact, it's probably pretty decent compared to some places they've had to sleep, even though there were only 2 bathrooms for 5,000 people. Yeah. But it's the Army. They do worse in training. They'll survive. Now, within the first 2 days of being in office, President Biden has signed at least 17 executive orders. The problem with this is that We're not told what the majority of them are. One executive order expands SNAP benefits, food stamps. It expands food stamp benefits by 15%. Yeah, that I think the word they meant was increase, giving 15% more money, and technically, what the news media fails to put out is President Biden did not increase food stamps by 15%. His executive order requests the Department of Agriculture to authorize states to increase by 15%. Okay, welfare is not run at the federal level. We're going to go into this more in the future, I guarantee. Welfare is not run at the federal level. Years ago, under FDR's New Deal, the initial programs that became what we call welfare today were, and it was found that that's way too big a job for one office. So that was pushed down to states. Some states, because of their social environment and too many people, and pushed it down to municipalities. Another executive order stated that LGBTQ people will be protected from discrimination. Okay, we already have laws that say you cannot discriminate against someone based on race, religion, color, creed, national origin, gender, ethnicity, or gender preference. So, was he wasting time? Oh, well, people say it's going to restore the rights that President Trump took. I have yet to see anyone point out any rights that President Trump denied anyone. Okay, moving on. One executive order was half wrong, and the news media is reporting even more wrong. President Biden signed an executive order on immigration that would, according to the news media, would register and legalize 11 million foreign nationals living in the U.S. and put them on a path to citizenship. Well, according to census data and the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, there are 20 million foreign nationals living in the U.S. illegally, and have been for some of them a couple of decades. So using the number 11 million is fraudulent at best. Putting them on a path to citizenship is another issue. Who said they want it? I mean, honestly, it's like, put them on a path to citizenship if they wish to. Well, here's a fun fact on path to citizenship. Anyone, anywhere on the planet can apply for U.S. citizenship. All they need is access to the internet. The United States, in terms of immigration, ranks very high. I did not re-verify the number. It was either number 3 or number 13. I would say we're probably closer to 13. Out of 197 countries. We're the 13th best out of 197. The one issue that the United Nations has with our ability for immigration is that anybody can process it online, and not everybody has access to the internet or computers. Hey, it's really, that's part of last week's issue about the public domain. Not everyone has access to computers all around the world, but guess what? That's where we have we have the ability to access things like citizenship, refugee status, all of these things. Now, when I say that executive order is half wrong, registering and legalizing the 20 million illegal immigrants or undocumented migrants, or pick your poison on word you want to use, they need to be registered. If every U.S. citizen is registered, why are these non-citizens not registered? If they've lived here for a decade or more, they should have been registered. Well, here's another fun fact. It's estimated that 70% of the people who are in the country without authorization came with authorization. Came in on student visas, work visas, vacation visas, and just never left. Okay, extend the visa. This is an easy way to prevent an issue. The problem with leaving them in a at-risk status is when they see a crime committed, they are afraid to call the police. When they see a fire, they're afraid to call the fire department because they don't want the state to notice that they're unauthorized and then deport them. So they're afraid to call in the police to stop crime because they don't want to get deported. Register them so they can be a responsible resident of the place they live. Done. Easy peasy. As for putting them on a path to citizenship, ask first. Silence is not consent. Is that really hard? Let's take a look at what the United Nations says a human right on migration is. Let's see. Article 13. Note, the Human Rights Commission's Declaration of Basic Human Rights. The United States was one of the primary writers. We were instrumental in creating this. Article 13. Everyone has a right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has a right to leave any country, including his own, and return to his country. I know there are those who would argue, oh, that's the patriarchy. Why are you saying his? Hey, it's a linguistic thing. Get over it. So, in Article 13, if you don't feel safe, you have a right to leave. You have a right to move around within the country that you are a resident of. Doesn't say you have a right to live in anyone else's residence. Article 14. Everyone has a right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. They have a right to ask. We don't have to say yes, but they have a right to ask. This right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or acts contrary to the purpose and principle of the United Nations. In other words, register the people who are here without registration so they can let the police know when there's a cartel member around, because cartel members in this country illegally are not authorized to be here as asylum seekers. All those MS-13 people, sorry, no. You're here to avoid possible prosecution for criminal activity in your home country. Send them back for prosecution. Now, a second note that I have to say on this, a couple of years ago, a young lady was shot in California, allegedly by accident. The illegal immigrant had found a pistol by accident. It went off by accident. Whatever, that's up to the lawyers. The problem, this was his fifth entry into the U.S. illegally. He had 4 felony prosecutions that resulted in deportation. So he committed a felony, got sent to Mexico, where he came back to the U.S., never having served any time for his felony, committed another felony, got deported again, came back, committed another felony. He never served time for any of his crimes because he was a foreign national. Register people so that they too can be responsible members of the community they are living in and held responsible for their actions as need be. Done. All the rest of the crap with that immigration one is misleading, bogus malarkey. But half of it was right. They do need to be registered if they are currently living here. It's not that hard. So, subscribe, follow, like, all those happy things, and we'll talk to you next time.